was a child, my life was very chaotic. Moving countries from England to Wales. The violence that came with that as a young lad who was very, very different to everybody else, right? Racism, being Chinese in an all-white place, the unpredictability of who was going to start a fight with me next, who was going to call me a chink or an English fucker, right? Like very, very unpredictable. So I learned very early, or my neuroception learned very early, that silence meant danger. Boyata. I got caught doing 37 in a 30 the other day, speeding again. But behind the punishment was a mirror for me. You see, I've spent most of my life rushing around through meals, conversations, decisions. And in that moment, as I was walking to my Enterprise rent-a-car pickup after having the ticket, I caught myself rushing again. Not late, just rushing. And so I slowed my pace down, tuned into my breath. And as I did this, a song popped into my head from when I was a kid. Slow down, you move too fast. You gotta make the moment last, just kicking down those cobblestones, looking for fun and feeling groovy. Yes, the 59th Street Bridge song by Simon and Garfunkel. And then in that moment, it landed. A little quiet aha thing, you know, a whisper from the universe that said, Lee, Davy, slow the fuck down. Welcome to the 1000 Days Sober podcast. I am, of course, Lee Davy. I am not an alcoholic. I refuse to be anonymous. I am someone who lives a self-led life, alcohol-free as fuck, and I spend every waking moment of that life, like right now, helping other people do the same. My beautiful wife, Liza, she once told me that I do everything too fast, right? But I never listened to her. Defended myself religiously. But now it's actually landing because she's been bedridden with sciatica for coming up to 5 weeks now. And I've been juggling her care, Zia, Jude, the house, my cat, my work. And I've got to admit, I've snapped more than once. Actually, just before coming on this podcast, another big fight, right? Frustration, irritability, short temper. And that's not me being above the line in self. That's me being activated, triggered in my parts. And I started to realize that this constant rushing around is actually a trauma response. It's my nervous system screaming, we're not safe, keep moving. Because when I was a child, my life was very chaotic. Moving countries from England to Wales. The violence that came with that as a young lad who was very, very different to everybody else, right? Racism, being Chinese in an all-white place, the unpredictability of who was going to start a fight with me next, who was going to call me a chink or an English fucker, right? Like very, very unpredictable. So I learned very early, or my neuroception learned very early, that silence meant danger, impending doom. I'm always waiting for the bomb to go off, right? Stillness meant exposure. So I actually became a master of motion, right? Always doing, always scanning, always surviving. So today, when life is calm, actually my inner child, my parts, they start to panic. And this happens subconsciously if I'm not aware, if I'm not in self-energy, right? Chaos is familiar for me. Safety, stillness, still working on that, right? So when I finally slowed my pace down on my way to pick up the car, I didn't just feel calm, and I did, in that moment I did feel calm, but I also felt a little bit uncomfortable, right? Like something was wrong. And that is when I realized that I wasn't just near the edge of my nervous system's capacity. I was way fucking past it, right? And there's actually a name for this, and I'm going to explain it after the break, right? But first, before we go to that break, ask yourself these questions. Do you find yourself unconsciously rushing around from task to task? Are you afraid of the silence? Take a breath, let it settle, and I'll meet you back here in a moment, right? Welcome to the 1000 Days Sober podcast. Just had a short break. And what I was describing then, this nervous system flood, the discomfort in the stillness, the snapping, the rushing, this is something called the window of tolerance, right? Now, this concept was developed by Dr. Dan Siegel, and I was first taught it during my Elementum Master Life Coaching training, right? And here's how it works in a nutshell. Your window of tolerance is your emotional bandwidth, your nervous system sweet spot. Basically what you can handle in life, right? And inside that window, when you're in that window of tolerance, right? For those of you looking at the video, my head is inside this metaphorical window of tolerance, right? You feel regulated, you feel grounded, you're calm, but you're alert. And this is when you're living from self, right? But if you step outside of that window, you're either going to hit a hyper aroused state, a fight or flight, anxiety, or you're going to hit an hypo arousal state. You're either going to go feel numb maybe, or disassociate, or shut down, right? So basically, the wider your window, right, the more you can handle in life without flipping out or shutting down. Some people call this a container, right? So the narrower your window or the narrower your container, the quicker you're going to lose control. And here's the link to alcohol, right? When you're outside of your window of tolerance for too long, wired or numb, okay, booze starts looking like a shortcut back to balance. But it's not real regulation. It's artificial. It's sedation, right? So the speeding ticket that I got, that was a sign, a reminder that my parts wanted to rush. But self slowed down, took a breath, right? This is the work we do in the Strive method. We teach you how to navigate your window of tolerance, not just to understand it, but to learn to live within it and to widen it a little more each day. We teach you how to raise your self-awareness so you can feel when you come into the edge of that window of tolerance, because this is where the craving lives, right? This is where the bottle starts whispering. And if we catch it early, we can intervene, right? For example, there were times then I would go into a room and I would feel Liza slipping into a masculine energy. And that is a trigger for my inner child. Makes him nervous, right? And I could feel the anger rising. So what I would do is I would leave the room. I would go into the backyard. I would take my shoes and socks off, get into the dirt, and I would just ground. Maybe I would scream a little bit, shout, release that energy, that frustration, that worry, that concern through my breath, right? Into my boundary. If I didn't want to shout and scream, I could just make a noise. Ooh. Sounds really silly, but it's a good release of energy, right? And when I did that, that moment took me away from my edge. It brought me back in my window of tolerance. And through the daily work that we do, your meditation, your mindfulness, taking 100% responsibility for everything that happens in your life, learning to release emotion, actually feeling your emotions, right? This is how you widen that window of tolerance over time. And this is how we build a nervous system that's less reactive and more self-led. So today's daily vow: when the urge to drink hits, I won't rush to escape it. I will slow down. I will breathe. I will pause for 20 minutes and choose to settle my nervous system instead. You're not broken, you're just dysregulated. And the booze, it's not your solution, it's your silence. Stillness is uncomfortable only because it's unfamiliar. But in that silence sits self, and from self comes freedom. Okay, that's all I have time for you today, ladies and gentlemen. If this message landed for you, please rate and review the show. It helps others find this path. Subscribe if you don't want to miss every single episode. And if you want to join the Strive method and learn all about the window of tolerance, how to navigate it, what it feels like, how to develop a toolkit so you can pull yourself back from the brink of disaster, then email me at thestrivemethod@gmail.com or send me a WhatsApp at +44 753 789 6829, and I'll give you further instructions. And remember, one last thing, take that vow. Do not drink today. You've got it. I know you have. You need to know you have, right? Until tomorrow, much love and strive on.